If you knew there was a book hidden for millennia that contains 6 levels of vibration capable of rewriting your entire reality, would you have the courage to open it? Because right now, while you're listening to this sentence, your frequency is being manipulated by invisible patterns you don't even know are active. And the worst part, they weren't created by you, but they're deciding what you feel, what you attract, and what you keep losing. In this audiobook, I'm going to reveal to you a vibrational code so powerful it was banned, silenced, and distorted for centuries. And not because it's dangerous, but because it makes you too free to be controlled. And to prove it right off the bat, the reason your life feels stuck has nothing to do with lack of faith, positive thinking, or karma. It's because you're trapped in one of the subtlest levels of vibration, and you didn't even know it. This level isn't visible, it's not taught, but it quietly controls everything you attract. And now that you know it exists, you won't be able to stop listening until you find out what the 6 levels are and which one you're vibrating in, because only when you discover this, you'll understand why your reality is stuck in the same place, even when you think you're doing everything right. And if you think you've heard something like this before, just wait. Because what's coming next was hidden for one simple reason. Those who understand awaken, and those who awaken never go back. Introduction. The forbidden code that's silently shaping your life. You're not stuck, you're conditioned. And this conditioning isn't visible. It's not loud. It operates in silence, a silence so deep that it shapes your life without you realizing it. It's in your first thoughts when you wake up. It's in the sense of urgency that pulses even before breakfast. It's in the impulse to grab your phone, in the images you consume without filtering, in the feelings you accept as your own without questioning. It's in the "this is normal" you keep repeating without noticing. In this audiobook, you're going to discover something many people would rather never have discovered. Because once you see it, there's no going back. You can't pretend not to notice anymore. Because what's about to be revealed changes everything you understand about manifestation, desire, personal power, and reality. And it's not a technique. It's a hidden structure that's always been controlling your frequency. Ancient wisdom recorded by Thoth and preserved in the most secret fragments of esoteric history already warned, reality doesn't respond to your desire. It responds to your frequency. And what determines that frequency is your attention. This isn't a metaphor. It's not generic spirituality. It's energy science. Your attention is a beam of vibrational light that acts like a laser. Wherever it's fixed, it shapes, it creates, it sustains. And if it's constantly focused on thoughts of fear, on feelings of frustration, on images of scarcity, then it doesn't matter how much you wish otherwise. Your field has already been programmed, and that programming wasn't your fault. It was installed slowly, daily, through thousands of micro-experiences that trained your attention to stay in a state of alert, to live in reaction, to orbit around survival. That's not a flaw. It's a reflection of the world you were exposed to. But the cost of that is high, because as long as your attention is conditioned, your vibration will be too. And the most unsettling part? This pattern is invisible. It hides behind logical justifications. I'm just staying informed. I need to be alert. I can't stop now. But what you don't realize is that by accepting these premises, you're agreeing to give your attention to what consumes it. And where your attention is consumed, your reality is distorted. You're not failing because you're incapable. You're vibrating out of alignment. Thoth taught that the mind is just a mirror. It reflects what's being sustained on the vibrational plane, and the first reflection always starts with attention. Before thought, before emotion, before action. There's a point of origin, a point so subtle that if you don't learn to recognize it, you'll be controlled by it for the rest of your life. That point is where everything begins. and no one taught you to observe it. Your school didn't teach you how to deal with it. Your religion might have ignored it. Society trained you to place your attention on everything except yourself. And now, as an adult, you realize you're exhausted. You try techniques, rituals, practices, but deep down, you still vibrate like someone who's still searching. Because your attention is in the wrong place. The truth is, you're not manifesting what you desire. You're manifesting what your attention sustains. And if your attention was conditioned to revolve around lack, comparison, vigilance, and fear, then that's what the quantum field sends back. Because the field doesn't respond to words, it responds to vibration, and attention is active vibration. Chapter 1. The invisible programming that's operating even now. You're about to understand something few have dared to face. Your current reality is not a reflection of your effort, your kindness, or even your deepest intentions. It's the direct result of a silent, invisible programming that was installed without your permission and now runs your life like a hidden operating system. You think you're choosing, but you're just reacting. Autopilot is sneaky. It doesn't feel dangerous. On the contrary, it feels comfortable, practical, familiar. You wake up, follow a routine, think the same problems, feel the same emotions, make decisions that seem new but are really just variations of an old script. And all of this happens inside an energetic bubble that feeds on your unconscious attention. What no one told you is that the universe doesn't react to your free will when it's drunk on autopilot. It responds to the vibration sustained by the choices you don't even realize you're repeating. Your vibrational field is being shaped by every micro decision, every recurring thought, every unobserved emotion. And that's exactly where sabotage sneaks in. You might be listening to this audiobook thinking, but I want to change. And maybe you really do. But wanting isn't the same as vibrating differently, because what you want is on the surface of your mind. But what you vibrate is buried deep in your attention, and if it's still locked into the same sources, the same emotional reactions, the same stimuli, then your vibration is still collapsing exactly what you want to avoid. We live surrounded by systems that feed this invisible programming. Media doesn't inform, it hypnotizes. Social media doesn't connect, it fragments. Culture doesn't liberate, it conditions. You're not encouraged to think deeply, to feel with presence, to act with awareness. You're trained to repeat, consume, fear, compare. It all seems normal because everyone's doing it, but just because it's common doesn't mean it's natural. With every phone notification, every endless scroll of images and videos, your attention is being diverted. And where your attention goes, your vibration anchors. And where it anchors, that's where your reality is born. This is the vibrational algorithm Thoth understood with millennial precision. The same one modern science is just beginning to confirm through studies on focus, neuroplasticity, and personal electromagnetic fields. Everything you feed with your attention gets stronger, and everything you repeat vibrationally manifests. What does that mean? That your reality isn't random. It's symptomatic. It reflects with brutal accuracy what your energy reinforces the most. And reinforcing isn't just thinking, it's observing, identifying with it, feeling it constantly. Right now, while you're listening to this chapter, there's a program running inside you. Maybe you feel anxious. Maybe your mind starts to doubt. Maybe you're already asking yourself if this content is really for you. That's not a coincidence. That's your programming's defense system. It detects any threat to its stability and activates internal mechanisms to bring you back to the comfort of the old. Even if the old hurts. Have you ever noticed how, even after an inspiring talk, a spiritual practice, or a self-help course, You go back to the same habits in just a few days. That happens because your vibration is tied to automatic triggers, and those triggers are protected by a repetition field. It stays alive because your attention keeps getting pulled into the same experiences, the same mental stories, the same interpretations. This is the real prison. You're not stuck in a mediocre life. You're stuck in a vibration that recreates that life every single day. And it happens because your attention is conditioned to operate at a level you didn't choose. You inherited it. It was taught, programmed, tamed. And the longer you live in this autopilot mode, the more you forget you can break out of it. But this is where you start to remember. Now you begin to understand why things repeat, why you fall back into the same emotional patterns, why, even after moving cities or changing jobs, the conflicts follow you. Because you're carrying with you the programming that sustains all of it. And that programming doesn't change with willpower. It changes with conscious and sustained attention. Attention is the seed of transformation. But if it keeps getting hijacked by empty stimuli, old beliefs, and scarcity and pain narratives, then everything that grows from it carries the same frequency. That's called a vibrational loop. And while it's active, your reality will be a distorted mirror of your unconsciousness. The problem is, nobody talks about this. They talk about changing thoughts, about thinking positive, about visualizing what you want. But all of that is useless if your attention is still vibrating the same old thing. It's like planting flowers in poisoned soil. Doesn't matter how much you water it, what's under the surface contaminates everything. Chapter 2, Level 1, Survival, the prison that disguises fear as normalcy. Now, you're about to start recognizing one of the greatest vibrational disguises ever created, the state of survival. It doesn't seem negative at first glance. On the contrary, it disguises itself as responsibility, realism, prudence. It wears the mask of adult life and blends in so well with daily routine that millions live inside it without ever noticing. But behind that appearance of normalcy lies a collapsed vibrational field. A field that doesn't create, doesn't attract, doesn't manifest anything beyond what already exists, because it's stuck in the frequency of fear. Fear here isn't a loud scream or a panic attack. It's silent. It shows up when you wake up and your mind instantly jumps to your to-do list. When you check your bank account and feel a tightness in your chest. When you compare your life to someone else's on social media and feel like you're behind. That's everyday fear. Fear dressed up as responsibility. You might think you're living, but in reality you're just avoiding collapse. That's the core of the first vibrational level, survival. And the scariest part is, in this frequency, the mind believes it's acting logically. It says, I'm just being realistic. I can't afford to dream right now. I need to secure the basics. And just like that, it convinces itself it's in control. But in practice, it's reacting, it's trapped. And the field, obediently, just mirrors what's being sustained. At this level, attention automatically gets sucked into what's missing, what might go wrong, what needs fixing right now. It's like there's an invisible program that puts your mind on high alert the moment you open your eyes. And that vibrational urgency is what keeps your reality stuck. Everything you see, feel, and attract revolves around a core of insecurity. And in this stage, the energetic field has no freedom to create new possibilities. It can only collapse experiences that reinforce the dominant pattern: scarcity, delays, comparison, fear of failure, fear of loss. And that becomes your repeated reality, day after day. In this audiobook, what you're hearing isn't theory. It's an exact description of what happens to millions of people every day, without them even realizing it. Because living in survival mode has become culturally accepted. It's seen as normal to live afraid of not having enough money, of not being enough, of being left behind. It's called maturity to say the world is tough, that you can't trust anyone, that life is a constant battle. But that's not maturity. That's conditioning. And that conditioning creates a vibrational identity. You start to see yourself as someone who has to fight for everything, as someone who always needs to push harder just to secure the basics, as someone who can't rest because everything could fall apart at any moment. And that identity becomes the foundation of your field. You start vibrating not like a creator, but like a survivor. And survivors don't manifest, they just endure. You can try techniques, use affirmations, practice gratitude, but if deep down there's still fear of lack, time pressure, the urge to fix everything, then your vibration is contaminated. The universe doesn't respond to what you consciously want. It responds to what you constantly vibrate. And the cruelest part is that the survival state creates a feedback loop. The more pressure you feel, the more your attention locks on what's wrong. And the more you focus on what's wrong, the more the field collapses similar situations. That brings more pressure, more frustration, and the repetition becomes inevitable. At this point, you no longer know if you're making choices or reacting on impulse. You act fast, but always based on urgency. You think, but always based on worry. You feel, but rarely allow yourself to feel without fear. Everything revolves around avoiding an invisible threat. A collapse that hasn't even happened yet, but your mind is already trying to stop it at all costs. And that energetic state has physical consequences. The body starts to tense up constantly. Sleep worsens. Breathing becomes shallow. The mind races. The nervous system sees everything as a threat. And that constant activation of survival mode blocks the natural flow of healing, regeneration, and expansion. You're not tired because you work too much. You're exhausted because you're vibrating threat all the time. And the hardest thing to admit, that state has become comfortable, even though it's uncomfortable, because it's familiar, it's known, it's what you saw your parents doing, it's what your friends live, it's what society reinforces as the only possible reality. Be strong, hang in there. That's just life. And you accept it, and you adapt, and you survive. But you weren't born to survive. You were born to manifest. And manifesting isn't about being lucky. It's not about hoping things get better. Manifesting is about vibrating in tune with what you want to live, and that requires an energy that cannot coexist with survival mode. Because as long as you're vibrating in fear, urgency, and scarcity, the field will keep mirroring that. The only way out is to recognize this pattern, not with guilt, but with awareness. Because as long as you believe living this way is normal, you'll stay stuck. But when you realize it's just a level, not a life sentence, you start to gain something no one can give you: vibrational choice. You're being guided through a deconditioning journey. And the first step of that journey is accepting that the level you're in now doesn't define who you are. It only reflects where your attention was programmed to lock in. And that programming can be broken, not with force, but with vibrational awareness. You're starting to see that now. And what comes next is the moment when something inside you starts to question that state for the first time. Because even in that dark place, a tiny spark can change everything. And it lights up at the second level. Chapter 3, Level 2. Control. When effort lifts you up, but demands a heavy price. After spending years vibrating in survival mode, there comes a moment when something inside you rebels. A quiet spark whispers that there's more, and this impulse shows up as action. You start moving, searching for solutions, setting goals, organizing your days with precision. You wake up early, read books, sign up for courses, Dive into everything that promises change. For the first time, you feel like you're taking control. And yes, at first, it feels like something is finally working. In this audiobook, the second vibrational level is exactly that, the state of control. Here, your energy shifts from passive to active. You feel less like a victim and more like the main character. You make firmer decisions. Productivity increases. Things start to happen, and that feeling is so refreshing, so different from the previous stagnation that you give it your all. And in the beginning, it brings real results. Your finances improve, your body responds, your environment changes. But there's a subtle detail most people miss at this point. Everything still depends entirely on you. With each win, a new challenge. With each goal achieved, a new internal demand. With each victory, a new level of effort. And before you know it, you're operating in full-on control mode. Focus turns into rigidity. Discipline becomes strictness. Commitment turns into overload. And what once felt freeing slowly morphs into a new kind of prison. You're no longer running from pain like before. Now you're chasing results. But your vibrational field still works under the same logic, reactivity. Only now, instead of reacting to fear, you're reacting to the need to achieve, and the universe still responds the same way, by offering exactly what your vibration is calling for. And what is it calling for? More responsibility, more control, more pressure. In this stage, your attention is entirely focused on doing. You're constantly asking, what more can I do? What's the next task? What's the strategy? What's the right move? And all this searching is legit. It's admirable. But it's being fueled by a vibration of urgency, not presence. You want to grow. You want to break limits, but you're using the energy of effort as your engine. And effort, when constant, turns into exhaustion. You start noticing it in nearly invisible details. Sleeplessness increases. Breathing shortens. You feel like you need to rest, but can't. Because if you stop, everything falls apart. Because it's all on your shoulders. Because you believe that if you don't do it for yourself, no one will. And that belief, though it seems motivating, hides a deeper truth. You still don't trust the flow. You haven't learned to sustain a vibration that manifests with ease. You are creating, but you're still vibrating scarcity. But now, it's not scarcity of money. It's scarcity of time, of peace, of inner space. You're racking up wins, but you can't enjoy them because you're already stressing about the next step. And without noticing, your life turns into an endless project, a plan that never finishes, a race that never lets you breathe. It's key to understand that the level of control is a bridge. It's better than survival, but it's not sustainable because the vibration you emit when you try to control everything all the time is one of distrust. And the field reflects exactly that. More things to control, more variables to manage, more curveballs to handle. You think you're in charge, but really, you're trying to stop everything from falling apart. And here's where something very subtle begins. The action that once felt exciting becomes a shield. You no longer act for pleasure. You act so you don't feel, so you don't face the emptiness, so you don't look at your accumulated exhaustion. Productivity becomes anesthesia, and the more you do, the more you feel you need to do, because stopping is scary. Stopping threatens to expose an internal discomfort you chose to ignore. You say you're after growth, but in practice, you're repeating a pattern of emotional overload, just now with goals and organization. And that's not expansion, that's resistance. The body starts sending signs. The mind starts to sabotage. Creativity weakens. Motivation drops. And you ask, why? If I'm doing everything right, why does it feel like I'm going backward? And the answer is tough, but necessary. Because your vibration hasn't changed. Only your behavior has. And behavior without alignment becomes a mask, becomes spiritual theater, becomes soulless effort. You're so busy trying to make it work that you forgot to feel, forgot to listen to yourself, forgot to connect. And that's exactly why, at this stage, many start to feel a strange emptiness they can't explain. Success comes, but it doesn't fulfill. Life improves, but still feels heavy. Achievements happen, but don't stick, because everything's being built on obligation energy, and obligation drains the soul. This is the vibrational prison of control. You think you're free, but you're still conditioned to do, and doing, when not born from aligned vibration, becomes noise, becomes wear and tear, becomes distraction. The modern world idolizes this level, rewards those who live exhausted, glorifies those who work until they drop, applauds those who never stop producing. But that mindset is vibrational suicide. And only those who begin to feel its true weight realize something has to change. And that's when a new question begins to form. A question that doesn't come from the mind. It comes from the field. A whisper that cuts through the exhaustion. An intuition that shows up in the middle of the chaos. Something inside you starts asking for a different way to live, for a different way to manifest, for something that doesn't come from effort, but from inner truth. It's only when effort becomes too heavy that you start searching for a frequency that rises from within. Chapter 4, Level 3, Coherence. The inner frequency begins to redesign your reality. Have you ever noticed how your inner silence shifts when your mind quiets down for just a few moments? In this audiobook, we reach the point where that pause stops being just a technique and becomes a continuous state. After surviving and controlling, a visceral need for something real shows up. It's when your attention finally turns inward and discovers that no external result lasts unless there's energetic coherence holding it all together. Imagine your vibrational field as an orchestra. In the first level, each instrument was playing in panic, trying to be heard by a non-existent conductor. In the second, the conductor showed up but led with frantic pace, pushing volume and speed until the orchestra was worn out. Now, at the third level, the conductor decides to tune every instrument before playing anything. Thought, emotion, and action need to hit the same note. Meditating for 10 minutes in the morning doesn't work if the rest of the day is spent in tension. Visualizing abundance doesn't help if you're still scared to check your bank app. Positive affirmations mean nothing if your actions are still driven by insecurity. Coherence is the vibration that shows up when everything plays together in harmony. The first shock to your comfort zone happens when you realize isolated techniques were never meant to replace presence. Visualization opens the door to imagination, but doesn't create reality if your heart trembles with doubt. Meditation clears the noise but becomes escapism if you return to the world and react the same way. Gratitude journaling trains focus, but changes nothing if your everyday speech is still filled with complaints. The question vibrating here is simple. Where are my body, mind, and energy still out of sync? The answer arrives in subtle waves. Maybe you realize you talk about purpose, but stay in a job that kills your joy. Maybe you preach self-love, but accept relationships that drain your light. Maybe you seek peace, but numb yourself with notifications every 5 minutes. Coherence exposes the incoherences that were hidden by rush and routine. And when these cracks appear, reality starts reflecting back ever clearer mirrors. You'll meet the coworker who triggers your fear, the delay that reveals your lack of trust and timing, the financial crisis that mirrors your value issues. None of this is punishment. It's precise vibrational feedback. But something fascinating also happens. As you align one area, results start flowing with surprising ease. Health improves when what you eat feels true to you. Money flows when your work reflects your real talents. Relationships heal when your words match your intentions. Coherence quietly opens doors. You notice synchronicities lining up, unexpected invitations, effortless solutions. And amidst that wave of confirmations, one uncomfortable detail stands out. There's still one thing that won't budge. Maybe it's the area that matters most to you, that life project that's stuck, that part of your body that resists healing, that relationship that keeps replaying jealousy or distance. You've adjusted almost everything, felt some relief, but that point stays stuck. Why? Because it's there to show you that coherence hasn't yet reached the deepest layer of who you think you are. Thought, feeling, and action may be aligned, but your core identity is still tied to an old story, like remodeling a house's exterior while leaving the foundation cracked. This moment marks the start of an even braver inner investigation, because what's holding that area back isn't lack of effort. It's not ignorance of techniques. It's an invisible piece on the vibrational chessboard, the image you hold of yourself in the silence between one thought and the next. As long as that image carries memories of lack, guilt, or fear, it'll keep sending out tiny waves that sabotage your freshly tuned symphony. The mind might try to speed up again, suggesting more tasks, another certification, another miracle method. But you already know the cost of effort. You already feel when it steals your lightness. So something different is approaching. A change that doesn't come from more training hours, but from diving into the vibrational root of identity. And that change doesn't come from effort, but from a deep energetic choice. Who you are being. Chapter 5. The blind spot of coherence that no one's telling you about. You made it this far, adjusted habits, aligned thought with emotion, brought intention to every action. And still, a part of you won't budge. It's frustrating, because everything seems to be in place, but the manifestation hasn't arrived as expected. That feeling isn't being ignored. It's the exact sign that you've entered the trickiest zone of the vibrational journey, the blind spot of coherence. The mind thinks it's in charge. The heart says it has learned to trust, but silently, there's still a part of you that depends on the world's response to feel peace. You say you're vibrating love, but feel anger when it's not returned. You say you're vibrating abundance, but shrink when something unexpected goes wrong. This is the most sophisticated trap. Apparent coherence. Everything looks aligned until the outside doesn't validate it. And when the outside doesn't confirm, the vibration wobbles. This is where the paradox of manifestation reveals itself in its most subtle form. You feel like you're ready to receive, but deep down, you're still waiting for something to happen first before letting yourself feel. You only vibrate lightness when everything is calm. You only feel gratitude when the results come. You only keep the faith when the signs are positive. But at this stage, all of that is still reaction. It's conditioned. And real frequency doesn't come from reaction. It comes from unconditional choice. You're still waiting when you should be being. That's the phrase that cracks open the illusion of false coherence. Life shows you it's no use to meditate and align every day if deep down you're still conditioning your vibration to a result. And that conditioning is subtle. It hides in phrases like, "When I get this, I'll relax. When that person changes, everything will flow. When life gets better, I'll surrender." All of that is vibrational postponement. You're telling the field, "I'll only be love when the world is kind. I'll only be present when the future feels safe. I'll only be truth when it's comfortable." But reality is shaped by resonance, not request. In this audiobook, it becomes clear the vibration that creates isn't the one you try to hold when everything feels right. It's the one you choose even when nothing confirms it. The energy that manifests isn't the trust you feel when everything flows. It's the trust you hold when everything is silent. But this demands a deep break from the old pattern, because that pattern is rooted. It says, receive first, then feel. And the new code needs to reverse that. Feel first, then you'll receive. And feeling before the world gives you a reason is an act of power. This blind spot is what keeps thousands of people spinning in circles, practicing techniques, affirming intentions, visualizing outcomes, but still vibrating deep down, the waiting, the expectation, the dependency. It's like the vibration is always asking for permission to happen, waiting for a green light, waiting for the universe to authorize the next step. But the universe doesn't authorize, it reflects. That's why even after aligning body, mind, and emotion, there's still that one area that resists. It doesn't need more control or more technical coherence. It needs vibrational surrender, a letting go that doesn't bargain, a choice that doesn't need external confirmation to be sustained, because only those who access this next level understand why everything changes, even before anything changes. Chapter 6, Level 4, Identity. When being redefines reality. In this audiobook, you've already realized that nothing really changes while your vibration still depends on the outside world. But now, something deeper starts to happen. A turning point that transforms manifestation into a direct reflection of your state of being. It's no longer about what you want. It's not about desire. It's about who you are when no one's watching. The universe doesn't respond to your request. It responds to the silent frequency you emit, even when your words say otherwise. Here, manifestation no longer bows to technique, not to visualization, not to intentions. It bows to identity. And identity, at this level, is no longer a mental label. It's continuous vibration, an energetic signature you hold without effort because it's become part of you. It's not about faking confidence, it's about being confidence. It's not saying, I am light, but vibrating light even when everything around you tries to dim it. At this point, an active vibrational choice arises. You stop reacting to what happens and start choosing how you want to vibrate before any stimulus. It's the end of automatic response. You're no longer a reflection of your environment. You become the source. It doesn't matter what others say. It doesn't matter what the mirror shows. Your vibration comes before the world. It doesn't need permission to exist. This is where manifestation stops being a chase for things and becomes a natural consequence of who you've become. But something subtle and powerful happens. The ego realizes it's losing ground. It starts to resist. It suggests you go back to old patterns. It tells you it's safer to control again, that feeling so much is dangerous, that trusting is risky. It wants proof before faith. But at this level, faith comes before proof. And this is the test. Can you maintain the frequency of the new even when the old screams? Can you hold the vibration without visible evidence? Because it's at this point that your reality starts collapsing the past and making room for the future. You stop waiting for change. You become the change. And with that, the world around you starts silently rearranging everything. People drift away without clear reason. Opportunities appear where there were blocks. Places begin to welcome or repel you with magnetic force. And it's not magic. It's pure resonance. You change the transmitter, and because of that, the field had to adjust. But this comes at a cost, an energetic cost, because the more you vibrate the new, the more the old rises to pull you back. Chapter 7, The Final Resistance, when the ego comes back with new masks. Now, you're moving through territory few ever reach. After accessing the vibrational level of identity, where being starts shaping reality without rational effort, something unexpected happens, the silent return of the old structure. but it doesn't come back wearing the same clothes. It returns with new masks. And because of that, many don't realize they're still being sabotaged by it. The ego, realizing it no longer controls your conscious decisions, starts working through what you tolerate feeling. And this is the major turning point in the vibrational game, because it's no longer about what you believe or think. It's about what you're allowing yourself to vibrate, even in silence. That subtle feeling of not being enough, which you don't speak but feel in your body. That slight tension that shows up when something doesn't go as expected. The discomfort you don't resolve but get used to. These are the invisible tests of your new identity. The ego knows it can't make you doubt with arguments anymore, so it plays with sensations, a weight that seems like normal tiredness but hides misalignment, an irritation that feels ordinary but signals a return to the old field, a rush masked as productivity but actually reveals fear of stagnation. These are emotional layers your old self uses to try to pull you back without you noticing. And here lies the biggest mistake: thinking these moments are just normal emotional swings. They're not. Every feeling you allow yourself to vibrate unconsciously is a small drop in frequency, a nearly invisible erosion of your new vibration. And if you're not present, it builds up, like drops forming a current over time. Suddenly, you wake up back in your old pattern and don't even know when you got there. At this stage, the field is already listening to you with extreme precision. It responds to the slightest change in frequency. If you disconnect for a few minutes, it feels it. If you start negotiating with your sensations, justifying anger or fear as something normal, the field reads it as a return to the old and responds accordingly. Manifestation slows down, signs get confusing, the flow starts to jam. But this isn't punishment, it's response. In this audiobook, you've already learned that the universe doesn't reward intention. It mirrors vibration. And at this level, vibration is measured not by what you say you feel, but by what you actually hold in silence. The quality of your manifestation depends directly on the quality of what you allow to stay inside you. It's not enough to think positively if you're feeling anxious. It's not enough to declare abundance if your body vibrates lack. Coherence now is energetic, not verbal. This is where many people give up. Because the ego uses everything: memories, traumas, old conditionings, and even recent successes to try to convince you it's okay to slip a little, that you deserve to feel this just today. But the field doesn't work on deserving. It works on vibrational consistency, and that consistency is what the ego fears most, because the more stable you become in the new, the more it dissolves. But this is also the most delicate test, because it doesn't come with shouts. It comes with whispers. It doesn't scream, "Go back to fear." It whispers, "Just today, you can doubt a little." It doesn't say, "Abandon your new self." It just makes you forget for a few minutes who you chose to be. And in that forgetfulness, the frequency drops. That's why only those who maintain the vibration see the field respond with a speed that's impossible to explain. Chapter 8, Level 5, Quantum Vibration, when the field responds before you ask. You reach a point where reality no longer depends on your conscious intentions. Here, the field starts moving even before your desire is formed. Not because of magic, but because of physics, because of alignment, because of presence. This is the level where vibration doesn't respond to wanting, it responds to being. Modern science is just beginning to lightly touch this mystery. Phenomena like the collapse of the wave function show that matter only behaves a certain way when observed. This means your consciousness isn't just observing reality, it's interfering with it. But what few understand is that it's not thought that creates. It's the vibrational coherence of your presence in the now. In this state, reality begins to reorganize itself at a pace that defies logic. Things that seemed unlikely collapse in front of you with precision. People appear, opportunities show up, paths open without you needing to push. It's as if the universe has started operating from the inside out, no longer from your effort, but from your frequency held in silence. And here comes the paradox. The less you need, the more you receive. The less you chase, the faster things come to you, because the field responds to the absence of resistance, to internal space, to the fertile void that only exists when you stop trying to control, manipulate, or anticipate. But this state isn't passivity, it's presence. It's inspired action. It's movement that comes from the center, not from anxiety. Quantum manifestation can only be sustained when you leave the mind and fully enter the vibrational body. When doubt dissolves and feeling becomes absolute. When you don't just believe, you vibrate like someone who already is. Still, not everyone can stay here, because holding this level demands something the ego will never accept: complete surrender. Chapter 9, Level 6, Divine Vibration. When the whole expresses through you. This is the highest point of this vibrational journey. In this audiobook, you realize you're no longer trying to manifest anything, because there's no one left trying. The self that desired, that chased, that resisted is no longer there. Only the whole expressing itself. And you are that channel. At this level, there's no longer separation between you and the field. The ego no longer plays. Decisions arise, but they're not thought out. They're felt. Intuition becomes the ultimate guide. You begin to live in sync with the universal mind, where everything flows with an intelligence that surpasses any plan. And the most extraordinary part, you stop reacting to life and start being the origin of events. Total surrender is not giving up to randomness. It's trusting the perfection of the movement. It's letting life unfold without needing to understand or control. In this state, miracles aren't rare events. They're the new normal. They're no longer requests. They're natural responses to a vibration that operates in complete harmony with the whole. You no longer vibrate something specific, because now you are the vibration itself. There's no room for doubt because there's no one left to doubt. The being is whole, complete, silent. And paradoxically, it's in that silence that reality sings the loudest. Everything starts aligning with absolute precision, not because of you, but through you. But even those who touch this level can fall, and the secret to sustaining this state is an effort. It's mastery of the two pillars that come before. Because even the purest channel needs vibrational maintenance. Even the strongest light can be shadowed by old patterns if there's no vigilance. We've arrived at the point where wisdom must become vibrational routine. Here, it's no longer about reaching the quantum level or holding a new identity for a few days. It's about living it, making this state as rooted as your heartbeat. And for that, there are 3 hidden keys that have never been taught the way you're about to feel now. The first is separation. Not separation from the world, but separation from automatic reaction. What sustains your high frequency isn't what you do. It's what you don't allow to contaminate you. When something external tries to pull your vibration down, you need to be aware enough to notice the trigger. That split second where you choose to react or remain is the moment when your field decides whether to keep collapsing the new or repeat the old. To separate is to protect. It's to honor what you're building inside. The second is feeling. There's no sustaining if you don't feel what you claim to believe. The mind can affirm 1,000 times, I am prosperous, I am loved, I'm capable. But if the body doesn't feel that as truth, the field won't respond. Holding a vibrational state means becoming intimate with the sensations it produces. It's about cultivating the vibration of abundance even when your bank account is in the red. It's about keeping the frequency of gratitude even when there's no applause. Feeling is more important than thinking, because it's in the feeling that reality bends. And the third key is sustaining. Here, you understand that raising your frequency isn't the real challenge. The true work is staying there, not by miracle, but by vigilance, by attention, by presence. You don't stay elevated through some magic technique, but through a constant choice. Where is your attention right now? On what's missing, or on what's vibrating? On fear, or on the remembrance of who you are? It all comes down to this. Focus determines the reality that remains. And now, with that solid foundation, a new revelation needs to be felt. There is a space between these levels, an invisible territory between identity and the divine. And it's there that the most hidden secret will be revealed. How to keep this field active, even while you're still living in the world. Few speak about this point, and maybe that's why many fall right here. In this audiobook, you're going to discover something most spiritual teachings ignore. Between the being that no longer reacts and the being that dissolves into the all, there's a subtle level, almost imperceptible, but absolutely defining. It's the space of full transition. Here, you no longer feel separate from life, but you also haven't fully merged with the One. There's a nearly, an in-between space between the awakened human and the vibrant divine. And in this space, everything feels lighter, more fluid. You start noticing signs easily, intuition comes clearly, the ego seems asleep. But that's exactly why this level is dangerous. This is the stage where many believe they've already arrived. And they relax, they let their guard down, they stop watching the field. And this is where the most intense falls happen, because the ego doesn't die easily. It transforms, it wears spiritual masks, it starts using your own evolution against you. Thoughts arise like, I already know this. This doesn't affect me anymore. Nothing can knock me off center. And before you realize it, you're vibrating control again, disguised as presence. This is the zone where trust needs to become humility, where knowing needs to turn into silence, where you must walk lightly, but with attention. Because everything you've built can fall apart if there isn't this loving vigilance. In this space, you're no longer identified with old fears, but you still carry their vibrational memories. And they can be reactivated if you forget you're in transition. That's why this level demands something that can't be learned from books, nor from teachers, nor from techniques. To cross this territory, you must die vibrationally, leave behind even the identity that was built with so much effort, and be reborn with something no one can teach you. A presence that only arises after everything in you has already bowed. Chapter 10. The Death of Control. No one told you how to be reborn. We are crossing the most subtle and dangerous threshold of the vibrational journey. A point where there are no more techniques, no practices, no masters. Just you, facing what still insists on controlling. Vibrational death isn't something you explain rationally. It's something you feel when control, identity, and even intention go quiet. It's the point where the I no longer needs to interfere, where no one is in charge anymore, only flow. For a long time, we were taught to seek spiritual elevation through effort, through routines, mantras, rituals, practices. But what no one told us is that the ego is a master at dressing in these routines. It loves using the language of spirituality to stay alive, only now wearing a sacred mask. That's where what we call performative spiritual consciousness shows up. The one that seems present, but is performing. The one that talks about surrender, but still wants control. The one that says, I surrender, but only if the result is what it wants. Vibrational death isn't dramatic. It's silent. It comes when you no longer fight the moment, when you no longer try to change what is, when you realize everything already is, and that your only function is to vibrate with all of it, not manipulate it. In this space, even desire must dissolve, not because desiring is wrong, but because desire keeps you at a distance from what is already yours. Here, you don't fake presence. You don't recite pretty phrases. You dissolve wanting. And what remains is a vibration so pure, so real, it doesn't even need words. The field understands. It feels it. It responds. Because you've stopped asking and started being. And it's in this death that the forbidden book, the one that held the highest levels of manifestation, finally opens its last page. That page has no words, because what it reveals can only be felt. In this audiobook, you're about to access a key that isn't found in books, nor in courses, nor in philosophies. True manifestation doesn't happen when you think. It doesn't happen when you wish hard, not even when you visualize with faith. Real manifestation happens when your field vibrates so coherently that the universe has no choice but to reflect it. Frequency is not an affirmation, it's an anchoring, and you don't anchor with thought, you anchor with presence. The universe is not reacting to what you want, it's responding to what you are. That's the difference between those who try and those who collapse. Between those who imagine and those who live. The field, that invisible space where everything vibrates before taking form, is way too intelligent to move by loose words. It only dances with your rawest, most authentic, most sustained vibration. True manifestation is less about achieving and more about resonating. That's why so many say, "I ask but I don't receive." Because it's not about asking, it's about holding the vibration of someone who already has. And that doesn't happen overnight. It's a training of awareness, an energetic refinement, a silent construction that starts inside and only then reflects outside. Now that the book has fully revealed itself, a choice needs to be made. And it's not between good and evil, right or wrong. It's between living between worlds, oscillating between the old and the new, or forgetting everything you've awakened to so far and going back to what's safe, familiar, predictable. But know this, those who've touched this truth can never completely forget it. Chapter 11. The Return to the World. How to be untouchable by chaos. We've reached a vital point of the journey, the return. Not the return to ignorance or to the vibration of the old self, but to the world as it is without letting it pull you back. Because now, after crossing the subtlest levels of vibration, after touching states that once seemed unreachable, you must live in the world without running from it anymore. And that takes more than presence. It takes vibrational sovereignty. External chaos doesn't disappear. The world is still full of distractions, collective emotions, heavy narratives, challenges that try to pull your attention. But anyone who's made it here already knows it's not about what happens out there. It's about how you anchor your energy, even when everything around you seems to collapse. The shield begins with attention, because everything that touches your attention gains power. The new you doesn't let just any stimulus grab hold. You observe, but don't react. You feel, but don't get thrown off. You understand, but don't absorb what doesn't resonate with your truth. Attention becomes like an invisible shield, not a wall, but a conscious choice of where your energy is directed. Anchoring your vibration in the real world is the next stage of awakening. Here, knowing is not enough. You must sustain. And sustaining doesn't mean forcing. It means letting the inner field lead, not the outer. You start to realize that even in dense environments, your vibration creates a silent bubble around you. People feel it. Situations shift. Time slows down because you vibrate from the inside out. You become untouchable to chaos. Not because you isolated yourself, but because you no longer resonate with it. The new self doesn't seek protection. It doesn't need to prove anything. It simply lives, vibrates, and acts without reacting. Presence becomes so whole, so coherent, that the world around it must reorganize itself in its presence, because those who live in this state don't ask for permission to exist. They emanate. Now, at this final point of the audiobook, something essential must be said, not as a conclusion, but as a mirror. You're no longer listening to learn, you're listening to remember, because what was activated here wasn't an idea, it was a frequency, one that may have already been vibrating silently within you for a long time, just waiting for space to emerge. You are no longer a seeker. You're no longer someone trying to vibrate. You are the vibration itself. You no longer manifest through effort or intention. You manifest through coherence. And coherence is the invisible truth that shapes everything. When you're whole inside, the world bends in resonance. Nothing else needs to be explained. Everything begins to be lived. If you made it this far, it's not by accident. Your frequency is already responding. Now write in the comments, with full intention, I choose to vibrate at my true level. That phrase will anchor the new frequency in your field and show the universe that you're ready to go all the way. And if you want to directly support this channel and help spread content like this across the world, there's a special link in the first pinned comment below where you can contribute with awareness and intention. And before you go, a special video has been picked just for you. It's right there on the screen now. Click so we can meet there. It's the next step on this journey. Don't ignore this call.